Hi guys, if you're new here, my name is Elaine, and on my channel I like to talk about bags from mid-range to vintage luxury. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back and watching my videos. I really appreciate your support and viewership. And so today I'm going to be talking about Hermes bags that have been repainted. I do buy a lot of my bags from Japan, and in Japan it is not uncommon to have bags touched up or even fully repainted as part of keeping a bag looking nice. It is pretty common practice. They don't really see it, I think, as a devaluing of the item. They really see it as a maintenance thing. But I do think it is a little different here in the US, where if you do paint a bag, it is no longer the same bag, and so it's a great devaluation of it. And so I've learned a couple things. It's not always easy to tell when a bag's been repainted. So I thought I'd talk about a little bit of what I have learned through this process. I do also have my phone set up here so I could do close-ups at the same time. You guys can see what I'm talking about because it's really hard to kind of see, especially when it comes to like painted things. Depends how it's done. It could be fairly subtle. I should also mention that, when you take in a Hermes bag to be spa'd, they will also repaint it, especially if there's like places that are losing color. Certain leathers like Epsom, like you can't really buff out scratches or things like that. They sometimes have to be repainted. I'll go over that in a little bit. But in general, I would have to say when you take a bag to the Hermes spa and they do repaint it, it tends to be fairly minimal. They really try to be light on the repainting. And then also, of course, they're going to do a perfect color match. Anyways, without further ado, so let's start off with my most current item that I have that I know has been repainted, which is this. This is called a Sandrine bag, which I actually really like. It's a really fun sort of design. If you saw my unboxing, I called it a fail because both items in that unboxing were not great. But this was one of them, and it was repainted. And also, if you remember, the hardware had paint stains on it. So it was like red. If I can find a picture, I'll put it up here. But I did, in the meantime, polish it up with some Blue Magic. Yeah, Blue Magic cream, linked down below. And that got the paint right off. So obviously, if the color of the hardware has tints of the color of the bag, that's a dead giveaway, which I should have known. But I mean, honestly, it looks really good. This is a box leather, and this bag has been fully repainted. So this is what box looks like when you repaint it. It has, part of the crackling here. It just has this sheen to it. So regular box, unpainted box, does not have sort of these crackling wrinkles to it. So I can show you here. This is also box. Parts of it have been repainted and restored by Hermes. But as you can see, the body of this box bag does not have any of those cracklings. And so I'll just do a little, I wonder if I can do a little side by side. But if you can see, the sheen as well is a little bit different. When you repaint a box bag, the sheen of this bag is a lot shinier. A regular box does have a sheen, but it's not as shiny. The shine is definitely a little bit different. Here, I can tell you where it's been repainted is mostly these corners here. As you can see, there is the crackling and the creasing. That was already there. And then the repainting was just trying to kind of preserve it so it doesn't keep flaking off. And I think that's part of the issue with repainted bags, is that once you repaint it, I think especially when it comes to like box, it is more likely to like flake or come off weird. Another hazard of repainting, which I saw in another bag that was labeled as box, is that it looks great when the paint is fairly fresh, like within the first couple of years. But as the paint really starts to dry, sometimes it sucks the moisture out of the leather and it starts to warp it. And the leather itself does not feel like leather anymore. There's no pliability. It's very stiff, but not in a good way. So I think it's really hard to tell just from pictures. It's most obvious when you have the item in hand. But for that particular item, you can see the paint has gone onto the stitches. And so if the body of the bag has white stitching and then you see bits of another color, again, dead giveaway, that's been repainted. Also, when it comes to Hermes, a rouge bag should have white stitching. Certain colors have white stitching, gold, etoupe, and rouge ache, sort of like their legacy colors, will have white stitching, contrast stitching. Everything else is usually tonal. So this should have white stitching, and yet you can see all the stitches here have been painted over and they are the same color as the bag. So that's one. I should also show you here, this is an Epsom wallet. I did get it spawed by the boutique. And of course, there was a lot of bald spots, and so they did repaint this as well. And I'm pretty sure they repainted it fully, but I will show you here that, you know, even if they try to repaint it, the Hermes will leave these spots bare, but they won't go over it too heavily. They're not going to coat it. So, you know, they'll still have some wear there. And I think that's the difference maybe between an Hermes spa versus a outside restorer. Like, you know, maybe they'll see these bald spots and then try to do a second layer, and that's when things get worse. So Hermes in general do it very lightly. This is an Epsom wallet, and you can tell that it's also been repainted because there's the shine. So usually Epsom is not this shiny. There's a little bit of shine, but it's not, it shouldn't be this much. So yeah, that is another giveaway. And then last but not least, this has been retouched. I'm not sure if it's been an outside restorer. It could also be possibly within Hermes, because again, they did leave some spots here that are not retouched. But for this one, I don't know if you can see, but these handles are shiny. These handles, they feel less pliable, so that's the painting, and they have a sheen to it that is not characteristic of this leather, which I think is supposed to be buffalo. So yes, buffalo has a sheen, but this one is particularly smoothed out. Like, you can tell there's probably a coating of something on here that makes it less grainy. So if a grained leather like Epsom, buffalo, or Togo is a lot less grainy, or even Clemence, and there's a sheen to it, that could be a sign that it's been repainted. Not always, because sometimes Clemence, especially older Clemence, will start getting a shine to it. So I won't add Clemence to that, but like Epsom for sure, Togo and buffalo for the most part, they're extra shiny like this. I do think that it has been repainted. So that's usually what I look out for. I mean, if it's white stitching, look for the white stitches, make sure there's no paint, hardware, and then overall the sheen of it. But of course, it's very hard to tell in photos. It's most obvious in person. It's really a tactile thing. If it's a really good price and it's coming from Japan, make sure you read the description. They don't always disclose it because they don't see it as a flaw. So, you know, have a discussion with the seller if you really don't want to get a repainted bag. Me personally, I'm a little bit lenient on it because I do take my bags to the Hermes spa. They then in turn will paint parts of it. So I think, you know, if you want a bag that's going to last and look good still, painting is sort of just part of it. But I do think if a bag's been fully repainted, it's been a heavy paint job, or the paint that they use is drying out and now warping the bag, yes, that is definitely not a good sign and will definitely devalue your bag. So I have learned a couple of these lessons. I really try to be a little bit more careful. The Real, I've sold a couple of repainted bags to them. They know, they list it as such. And of course, the value that I get then is much less than what I paid for, which is unfortunate, but you know, that's sort of the lessons I've learned. Let me know if you have any experience with bags that have been touched up or fully repainted. Do you have maybe other tips for me and for anyone else watching this on how to tell from a photo if something's been repainted, or even just in person, maybe something I've missed? Like I said, I'm not any expert or anything. This is just from experience, what I've seen and what I've learned. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!